didn't
like
know we had a Faria team.
I, I, as soon as I looked at it, I saw Scuderia and Ferrari, and they just sort of melded into one in my head.
Is that a new 2023 update?
I think it is, yeah. I mean, that'll be my next My Team career mode name for the next game. Absolutely. And a track like this, which unlike in real life F1, you don't need to run maximum wings for because air density isn't a thing in the game apparently. So obviously you can Cody can tick another box for realism there. But generally, with this sort of track, long straights and awkward chicanes, how have you found driving this track, Song God?
Do you really want the answer?
Go for it.
Um, it's not one of my favorite tracks anyways. I feel like it's actually gotten harder to drive on since last game. Um, and I didn't race here last season, so I don't have much experience. In fact, my first time trial lap on this game was earlier on this afternoon. So yeah, it's not the nicest on the pad, and if you love it, you love it. If you don't, you really don't. So that's what I think of it.
Yeah, I think the handling model, particularly with these new cars, just makes this even more than a challenge it was in 2021. And it's, I remember when this game first came out, and as soon as you dare to put on even the slightest bit of throttle, the rear end just doesn't agree with you. And thankfully, it has been ironed out somewhat in some patches, but it's
Correct. Four debutants, I believe, tonight.
support.
We got Zano in the Ferrari, Richard in the Ferrari, Trollo Bollo in the Aston Martin, and Jamie in the Williams.
Certainly, all gone a bit crazy at Maranello, hasn't it?
You could say that.
Well, you could say firing Mattia Bonotto just simply wasn't enough.
Very good point. Three of the debutants out on track right now, so I have a bit of a inkling as to where they're going to be pace-wise, but just have to wait and see.
It's the excitement of not knowing, isn't it? And you could find, just very much like how Slapbus did last week in Hungary, that could spring a brilliant surprise for us. And it looked relatively tidy from the way Richard went across that first chicane. We're coming up into the second sector now. We'll just quickly go over this on board. It's a 28.9, so relatively decent as it comes through the awkward second sector now and then through onto the S. It's almost understeers a little bit coming through the second part of the corner. It's basically just one corner. I'm sure you know what bit I'm talking about. Through the S's where you really, so easy to invalidate these on this track, so you have to be very careful. And he was very, very careful with the way he went into it, which is sensible. Just get the banker lap in and just find the time a little bit later. But at least you'll have that reference point as you go through the rest of the lap. Into the stadium he goes. And I have to say, I do miss the parabolica of the old Mexico track, but as long as the fans get a decent view, then I'm not going to complain too much. As Richard comes across the line, and it's a 17.6 is the initial benchmark.
Not bad. Yeah, the meta for this track seems to be high wings. Not high wings, high gears. Um, so well, keep an eye on that telemetry through certain corners, especially slow corners like the last sector. Have a look at the telemetry, see what gears these guys are using, because if you're racing later this week, you may pick up some tips.
I think Trollo Bolo must have heard you, because I saw him going through that first sector really in fourth gear, and I tend to do that through a lot of my sort of races. It really helps with carrying enough apex speed, but not to ruin your grip in terms of getting traction out of the corner. So Trollo Bolo playing it pretty high in terms of the gears. Clearly must have heard you talking in the comms box.
When you've been streaming as long as I have, sometimes you think you know too much information.
I always think I miss information sometimes when I'm streaming. It's like sometimes it's all like not always getting enough information spoken to the audience, which it's a bit of one of those things you just judge it as it comes, as you see. That's third for Trollabolo with an 18.7. He's got that banker lap in, so plenty of time to find as John rather predictably goes to the top of the timesheet on his medium compound tyres. His
The
qualifying...
mediums.
Yeah, on the mediums. His qualifying, as to say, along with Deflated, also with 1010 and Wiggles, Chaos as well. Their qualifying journey has been superb.
Certainly has. It's no one joins this league perfect. You evolve and you grow as you go, and you know, as frustrating as it is for those top runners, when more top runners join, it actually pushes them to be better. You know, and I think Josh in 81 is close to 100th in the world in TT.
Very sweaty.
So, you know, having that kind of caliber in the league actually improves your own racecraft. So,
it's amazing to think over 100th in the league. So that just shows the kind of caliber of people that we have racing for us here, which certainly makes for better viewing. I know a lot of the no assist races that we've been streaming so far, that usually it's been the top 5 usually separated by next to nothing, and that's always made for very good viewing, especially to commentate on, and I'm sure that's been the story with the 81 races as well. Let's see Deton, he's certainly had a few troublesome races, but it's always nice to see him coming into his own. He was very unlucky to be taken out as he was in the Hungarian Grand Prix last time. However, he's slowly and steadily improving on this no assist tier, which I have to say is definitely a tricky one to drive, as everyone, as you see in front, is very sensible to stay out of each other's way. As you see Deton come across, oh, but he has a massive snap coming out of that corner. He goes 9th for now, but he's still got plenty of time to find, but give him time and he'll surely come into his own.
and a little bit of admin to do. Noticed that one of the newbies was cutting corners to get back into the pits, so I'll be, if I'm quiet for a bit, I'll be just typing some messages in the Discord.
Safe to say race control is in full effect for this race, but we always like to see plenty of stewarding as well as decent racing, so we're going to call you the steward god for this race.
I've been called worse, so, you know, I love it.
Well, I'm sure you haven't been called Michael Massey, so...
Gosh. Well, you know, maybe Michael Massey's looking pretty good after what happened at Australia the other week.
Ah, yes, with the whole safety car thing, and to be honest, like, I think people are just making a bigger deal out of that than it needs to be. It was just a case of... I'm not against these, like, standing starts after a safety car. I'm not against that, but at the same time as well, the FIA can't help that much carnage being delivered out on the track, so... But I do think them doing a whole lap just to finish in formation behind the safety car was just completely pointless.
I mean, I know where they come from, like, they needed to complete the race. They had one lap left to go, therefore the race wasn't completed. I kind of get that, but, you know, maybe there's some rule in the future they can add that would just make things easier.
Well, at least they didn't leave a tractor out on the track and blamed it on Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Anyway, we're on board with Smaller Smiley, who's lost it. Now, commentator's curse has been a bit of a recurring joke throughout these streams. That was completely innocent.
Doesn't exist.
Exactly, it doesn't exist at all. Everybody else is telling me porky pies. On John. Top 4 all done their best on mediums. Jamie, 17-1, and he's done a relatively decent lap, hasn't he?
Yeah, not too bad. To expect any of the newbies up with the top 4 at the moment is a little bit unrealistic, I'm saying. But if they do, then they'll massively surprise us from this game in Q1. It's very frustrating.
Please fix this CD. Ours, Richard 020 goes second with that time, which is 17-0. Maybe on the sauce, but for a debutant, I thought that's relatively good pace, I have to say.
Oh, hello, Demon. Haven't been here in a few weeks. How are you doing?
No. I think that's me on the sin bin for the next 10 minutes.
Yellow card.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Let's stay on board with Commence then as he goes through all of the S's. Yeah, that's definitely better. Move the mic a little bit closer to me. So Commence in the Alpha Tauri takes the S's relatively tidy as he comes through the third DRS zone. He's 2/10 up in his best, which will currently see him only improve one place. So he's got to find a lot of time within this final sector, which isn't the easiest given how Mickey Mouse it is and how gentle you need to be on the throttle. But it looks like he's done it relatively tidy. It goes across the final corner and it's a 17-1. So massive improvement there from Commence, who now takes 8th place with that time. But Deflated Wii is yet to run on the soft compound tyre, so I imagine we'll see him out very, very soon. Let's go on board with Flu then, who's currently 15th with an 18.3. Yellow's in Sector 3, so it looks like someone just trying to get out of the way. The Alpine comes in, and with 4 minutes to go, he should have just enough time to get back out and set another time. As Damon is improving his time in his Alpha Tauri. He's currently 5/10 up on his... Oh, but he's... As I said that, he loses the back end through the stadium section. And I think that's it for him. He'll be coming in pits to box to put on another set of tyres. And yes, he does. Energy, I think, to complete the lap without it fully running out. However...
This will be his one and only run.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. This straight, though, it takes so much of your energy because it's just so long. And he's... Oh, and that did not go well for him there.
Oh, that's a bit nasty.
I hope he wore his brown overalls. And that looks like Richie out of qualifying unless he can get round one more time.
If he's got enough fuel, he can go again. But who knows?
Mm-hmm. He's currently 2/10 up on his best. Didn't quite get the S's right, though. Oh, but he's invalidated. So he's got to back off and charge energy. Greg is next. Deflated Wii could be in trouble here. Crucially, Greg is a 10th down on his first lap through the second sector. So hard to say whether this will be an improvement unless he's had a brilliant final sector. The McLaren comes across the line and he doesn't improve. So I think that may be curtains for Greg's qualifying. Whether he'll be safe, I do not know. Another lap. And Richie, sadly... Oh, there we go.
Starting a new lap.
He is starting a new lap. Yeah, you're right. Trollabolo is also starting a lap himself, as is Deton. Blue is currently 9/10 up on his best, so we'll go on board with the Alpine for now. I think he's the next one to, and apart from Prev, to complete a lap. As Prev comes into the pits to box, as the Frenchman in the French car comes across the line and goes 9th with his time. So a second improvement only takes him up to 9th, which just shows how close it's getting up the top. Only 4/10 covers the top 9. That's pretty close.
Very close indeed. Richie, this one is valid so far. Oh, but losing the rear end a lot. I think maybe there's a setup problem for Richie going on.
as Deflated takes the fastest lap and gets himself through into Q2. Greg will come into the pits shortly.
Trollobolo is out. He has invalidated.
I think he cut the corner.
Well, he is cutting corners on the
Yeah.
way back in. I think he'll need
Yeah.
a cheeky message as well.
Deton has invalidated, so he'll line up at the back of the grid.
With all these majestic spins, it feels like it's more poignant if there was some heavenly music in the background.
I think if you can find some of these and make a nice edit for the YouTube channel, that could be really, really good.
Hopefully Padge is watching.
Yep. And looks like that's it for qualifying, guys. It's with Trollobolo and Deton over the line and Richie in the pits. It looks like those three will be the ones going out of this qualifying session, which Trollobolo, it's obviously these things obviously happen as a debutant as well. Then anything can happen for him during the race, and as Murray Walker always says, he usually does in Formula 1. And we're just waiting now for everybody to... Oh, and as soon as I say that, the game decides to go to the next session, and it's almost as if it read my mind. Something that the game may have actually gotten right for a change. So there we go, everybody. Just to show you through, these are the top 15, and coming out of the session, we have Trollobolo making his debut for Aston Martin and 16th. Richie M is 17th in the Haas, and behind him is TRC Deton in the Red Bull, who lines up in 18th place. And then here we have John out in his McLaren. So, I mean, he was the first one out. Normally it's Joseph Hales, and Miss D and TD are always making jokes about that. But we're going to go on board with the McLaren, and let's see what... because John was the first one to set a lap on those medium tyres, and bearing in mind the track hadn't quite rubbered in yet, he probably had a couple of tenths to spare. So let's see how he takes this lap on the soft compound tyres. We'll go on to his onboard quickly. And just as you said earlier, Sun God, obviously watch the gears. A lot of people, even upshifting quite early, coming out of that third corner to really help them with traction. So it looks like Sun God's predictions were absolutely on the money. 28.4 for a first sector, so that's relatively quick there for John as he comes through the awkward turn 4 and 5, and then 6 and 7, which is just basically one turn at this point. Through onto the S's the McLaren goes. Let's see how he takes this through his onboard. It's very, very tidy, it has to be said. As Songard sadly got kicked again, which is a shame. We'll no doubt will have him back shortly. As there goes John with a 56.5 already by the second sector, but he's invalidated. And that is such a shame for John, who was on for an absolute flyer of a lap there. So Prev is the next one to set a time, but he's the second down on what John was able to do. So don't expect this to be the overall benchmark, but he comes across the line and sets a 17.3. Still relatively strong lap, as Jamie HCP sadly has invalidated his time as well. Commences next to come across the line. He's looked to have a relatively tidy lap. He comes across the line, and sadly, he doesn't top Prev. I think Padge is about to come over the line and start his lap. Yes, he is.
You want to just ping me an invite, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry, of course.
Right.
I think we're going to call you the booted god now. As Wild goes fastest with a 16.2. I think good time to segue for my bad jokes there. Greg goes on his outlap. Let's go on board with Padge. We always love to see Padge in full effect. He does a 57.7, so a couple of tenths down from what Prev was able to manage, and he's invalidated. Cuts the right-hander before the stadium, and that's getting very frustrating and very tricky for everyone out there to manage track limits. It's enough so bad that CM at Marduk will probably give you a thumbs up for it. Steely in there with the commands for me.
Well, I've got a great stat for you about time penalties at Mexico later on.
Is this a? I thought you were about to. I thought you were about to say how many front wings I've destroyed this season.
I should probably get a stat for that as well on the driver stats.
Let's moving on here, guys. Let's.
Mad
go on.
Mark, lovely. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're well. We have a no assist race every Tuesday. We have more divisions as well. If you're interested, let us know, and I'll put you in touch with someone who will give you some more information. Ten, nice lap so far, and 16.3.
I always love how close it gets in this tier, particularly between like the top 4 or 5. It's almost like watching esports racing, given how close everything goes in there.
Nah, they're not that good.
Oh, give it. Not that good. 10-10 intensifies.
10-10 Optimir. Wiggles, Burryman. No, not the same ring, I'm afraid.
Well, as long as you haven't called anybody Ronhar, that might be a controversial name.
Gosh, does anyone want to be Ronhar at the moment? Richard Ronhar, maybe. That has a nice ring to it.
Richard Ronhar. Yeah,
Richard Ronhar.
Nice one, mate. That actually worked. And wow, you see the time John just set? 66 dead.
The 66 dead.
Yeah. And Hales looks like he's on the money to match it at least. So it looks like this looks like we've got John Ronhar now, and
John Har.
Oh, and Hales just misses out by nearly 0.03 of a second there. These two obviously sweating a lot in time trial. But it's good to see. We always love seeing close times in these. I'll just send you another invite, Tim.
No, thanks for dropping in, mate. How did you find us, by the way? Always like to know how people find us, new people find us.
So it's taking that very steady. Ooh, so close there. 7/10 up. So this is a good lap from commencing the AlphaTauri. Oh, it's Jamie has been disqualified. So
blocking the pit entry, maybe?
So parked in a dangerous position.
Right, maybe just off the track, letting people through, and hasn't got going in time.
And sadly, Codemasters happened for him, which is a shame. So he's found us through flicking through Twitch and the on channels live on Twitch. So that's quite interesting. Nice of you to tune into our channel of all things. You've been kicked again.
No, I've just got back in, but I wouldn't put it past this game to kick me out again.
Oh, thank you. Well, at least you're back in. We always like to see it.
A little bit of lag from Kements on my screen. It might just be me being kicked and rejoining, but might be something to look out for.
No, I think a couple of players have had a little bit of lag, so I don't think that's far off what's actually happening. But yeah, lag is quite a pain, which I imagine last week when everyone was having the whole Virgin Media issues.
Oh gosh, yeah. That was awful, that was.
I'm assuming you were a victim of that.
Oh no, my internet's worse than that, so you know.
Well, your Wi-Fi is that bad, you might have to start communicating with Ravens.
Wow, I was not expecting that.
Nah, I'm only joking, mate. As Greg hopped across the line, he does a 16.9. You are now the modem god, according to Steely.
Or Raven God, apparently.
Raven god. So Mad Marcus just dropped us a follow. Thank you very much for that, mate. With number 55, showing your name with the smooth operator, Carlos Sainz. But thank you so much for the follow, mate. Really, really appreciate it. Padge hasn't done the tiniest lap. See what Richard does in his Ferrari. Oh, and he's hit the wall.
Padge has had a bad lap and has decided to box, possibly for another run. So, one lap. Oh no, he has retired, so Padge is out as well now.
Yep, so that will be Padge out of the session. Deflated Wii sitting in 9th at the moment, so far from safe. He's got to get a good lap in, and he's got to do it now. Yeah, out of turn 7. Looks like he was...
I don't actually think it makes too much difference if you run wide there. It's all about your exit.
There's no exits are so crucial in Formula 1 games in general, but in Mexico in particular. And he's gone 2 tenths up on his best. So, I mean, I've no doubt Deflated Wii will certainly improve. But if he can find another couple of tenths in this final sector, they should get him up to probably around 7th or 6th or 7th place.
Yeah, if he can get 6th, that would be a really good spot for Prov.
And as you say that...
Nice last sector. Really good last sector.
Very nice, very tidy.
Oh, crib. I keep an update of the driver stats. So all the 150 different people who have raced in this league are pretty much... I read their names every week, so I am bound to remember a lot of people.
He's otherwise known as Big Brain God.
Again, I've never been called that. I get called Big Head at work by the young people very, very frequently.
Aww, that's...
So, maybe it's a compliment in disguise, who knows?
Yeah. Well, now you got the perfect comeback. Big head, big brain.
It's now or never for Wii. If this lap doesn't work, then he's not going to have enough ERS to make the next lap comfy. So, 6 tenths up, so it's all about not invalidating now.
Yeah, he should be good for at least 5th. Well, it all depends on how much time he finds in his final sector. It probably takes a lot of curb there, just before that first right-hander. As he comes across the line, they should surely see the Haas through. And what does he do for a time? He goes 3rd with that, so...
Yeah, very nice.
Very well improved.
Zeno has invalidated in the first sector, so unfortunately he'll be starting 13th on the grid, and Dayman is invalidated as well. So that is 12th for Dayman. So it looks like it's just Richard aiming to displace Flu. Smaller Smiley will be safe.
I think to get into Q3, I think that would be a really solid debut if he pulls it off.
Yeah, very impressive. To be fair, this probably isn't the easiest track to be thrown into for your debut.
Oh no, it's quite difficult.
With the amount of invalidations in quali. Zeno, for instance, could have set a low 16, who knows?
Crucially, Richard is a 10th down coming into the second sector. Wasn't relatively tidy, but he comes across the final corner. What can the Ferrari do? Can he salvage his qualifying as he comes across the line? And sadly, he does improve, but it's not enough. And
unlucky, mate.
Very unlucky, but I have to say, very respectable debut to get into 11th place in a no assist here. So fair play to you. I think that was a very strong result for you there in the Ferrari. Put together a good lap, which I'm fully confident that they will. We could be seeing potentially a 15.8 here. I'm really excited, and you know how much I love to see records get broken. But we'll just take you through the people that have been eliminated. So it was Richard 020, very respectable P11 in his debut for Ferrari. Damon is 12th in the AlphaTauri, with Sano also 13th, making his debut in the Ferrari. Padge didn't set a time, sadly, and Jamie was sadly disqualified, which I imagine he was trying to get out of the way, but sadly the game had other ideas about his behaviour, so it's not something that we like to see. And it's a lovely announcement, and if he can get here in time, the man who usually sits next to me in the comms box will be joining us for the race. TD will be taking one of these cars for a spin. And not to be honest, we're all up for it. I know he's been dying to have a crack at this tier, so I'm very, very happy for him.
Q3, I will let you know. Oh, TD, can you stop inviting me? Thank you for the 4 invites.
I think, to be fair, he just loves having you around. Can't blame him for that. We'll take you through Joseph Hale's lap now. He's the first one, as I've kind of made a bit of a joke about in a lot of these streams, and sadly he's invalidated. So already a bit of an anticlimax there. And John is invalidated as well. Who else have we still got? So Flu hasn't yet invalidated. So we'll go on board with the second of the Alpines. 28.6 for a first sector, so it's 2/10 down from the fastest that we've seen. He's keeping it relatively simple and straightforward. Looks like he's lagging a little bit there, which isn't always nice to see. Hopefully his teammate can stay out of his way coming into the S's. It's one corner after another, and you can't just throw it in. You have to be so patient with the way you angle the car in this particular corner. As he comes through into the next sector, he's got a 57.4, so again far from the fastest that we've ever seen, but he's going to set the original benchmark, is Flu, as he comes across the stadium. Go on board with him quickly on his onboard. We'll just change the camera angle for a little bit. TD being the helpful man as he is sometimes. He comes across the line. It's a 17.2, so still a while to go before the next set of times come through. Unless Wiggles sets 16.2. So we're 2/10 off the fastest that we've seen, and about 3 or 4/10 off a potential record being broken. Commence comes across the line, does a 16.7, so he takes second for now. Ten goes with his fastest with a 16 flat.
Still not the quickest we've seen so far tonight.
Yeah, only by a few hundredths. And John's just started his lap again in the McLaren. He's obviously recovered some errs. I think Joseph Hales must be on a new lap himself. He's done a 28.5 for a first sector. So not the fastest that we've seen. But now Joseph Hales invalidated again. He's done it again. So surely he's going to have to come in now and pit for a new set of tyres. Because you won't be able to charge the energy, and those tyres will be cooked. John does the 28.4.
Small has popped in there with the 17.1 dead and goes 4 fastest at the moment.
Tidy there. 56.5 for John. Keeps it all within track limits. Oh, but he looks up a little bit through the stadium section. That's not what he needed. It's still going to be quite a competitive lap time, but he will have lost about a 10th or 2 through that. But he comes across the line, and as I say that, 15.8. The record has been smashed by a 10th, and we didn't have to wait until the end of the session until we got it. So I think that's
that's just from last season. I don't think it's the record. I'll have a look at the record for you.
I mean, on this game at least.
You love a record, don't you?
Yep, you know me. I'm a bit like Red Bull. I only care about the records.
The record at this track is a 13.1, so I doubt we're going to be beating that.
Which game was that? Was that F1 2020?
Probably 2 games ago. Set by one Hoi K. If you're an OG in this league, you will know exactly who Hoi K is.
Yeah, I remember Hoi K. Preb is next to set a time. What time do you reckon Pole's going to be? So I reckon Pole's going to be a 15.7.
We still have 4 tenths to go if we want to beat the 81 quali time from last season. That was a 15.5 dead.
Wow. Do you reckon Josh will beat it next time when we on Thursday?
Most probably.
28.6 for the first sector for Prev. Quite strong, all things considered. Looks a relatively tidy lap from the Dutchman. Now into the S's. Just play it careful. And that's what he's been doing. Yep, tidy lap there from the Mercedes, who does a 57 flat, and I think that's the best that we've seen of him so far. Now into the stadium section he comes. As I was saying this last week to TD, I think if there's one thing that the game's gotten better, it's the spectator shots that you can get from the stream. Like when you get like a helicopter view, it's just so nice to watch. And Prev goes 4th with that time. 2nd of the Mercedes, I should specify, with a 16.6.
Deflated was on a decent time, but through the end of the S section actually spun the car around, so he has come back into the pits for a new set of tyres.
Might be feeling a bit deflated after that one. And I'm going to hell.
Not from me.
Joseph Hales, he set the fastest first sector that I've seen, a 28.3. However, it looks like he's, I don't know whether it's laggy internet connection or whatever, but it looks like he outbraked himself coming into turn 4. However, this looks quite tidy so far. Hopefully, this is just lag that's the problem.
But the line through the S section wasn't quite there.
What? 15.6? That's mad.
I mean, I'm not too surprised. Wiggles has the most pole positions in this league, so, you know.
He is a very good qualifier.
Steely predicted it, 15.6.
What's 1010 going to do? It's only a 15.9. And I don't think 1010's actually going to be able to set another time unless he saves us like hell on this lap.
He might be aiming to go back into the pits. So the gap between 1st and 4th is a full second. Just kind of demonstrates how sometimes there's a ceiling, and just when you thought you've gone through the ceiling, actually there's another floor above you to go through. So expect to see quicker lap times than you expect.
But he's got one last crack really now to get in a decent lap. I know he's got about 1 minute 30 odd to go. However, it all just depends how this lap plays out for him.
Rev session's over, had a huge snap in the final corner, so just went back into the pits. Kemmons goes 4th. Nice lap.
Yellow's in sector 1. I think that's either Greg. I think that's Greg just getting out of the way. 1010 retires, so it's only going to be potentially 3rd best for him. But it all just depends what Deflated Wee and Joe Hales are able to do. And they need to hook up their laps. Deflated Wee keeps it within the track boundaries.
This is where he had the spin last lap.
No such issues for now. 56.8. So it's 3/10 off the best that we've seen. But then again, that all's relative depending on Mr. Wiggles'
And
time.
Smaller Smiley is in the way.
He's got to get out, and he has. Hopefully that didn't cost Deflated Wee too much time.
Huge distraction, though, I imagine.
Yeah, he does a 16-1, which is good, all things considered, but that's about as good as it's going to get for Deflated Wee, and I wonder, like you said, whether there's about a tenth or so within that distraction that you got.
Yeah, I imagine it wasn't a block. It was just a very big distraction.
Yeah, I mean, certainly no malice involved. So, so Wiggles and John are next to come across the line.
Oh, Smaller Smiley spins at turn 3, and
oh, Joseph Hales spins at this. Oh, Joseph Hales, who was on track for a brilliant pole time, is going to start this race in 10th place.
Wow.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Song God, but
it's all good. So no improvement from Smaller Smiley in this session, or Deflated Wee. So it's now Wiggles versus John.
It's actually going to work well for Wiggles because he's going to get the benefit of the toe without losing any downforce. You get very distant toe from that McLaren. Let's just go on board with John and see how he does for his next sector. Let's see if he's made up any time relative to the Mercedes. He's 2/10 up. This could be a 15.5 here. Oh, he loses the back end somewhat. It's going to be close. He'll be on track to take pole as of now. It all just depends on what the time Mr. Wiggles has got. The McLaren comes across the line and does a 15.6. But he just pips him by 0.02 of a second.
How?
Unbelievable stuff. The top two virtually leaving the field for dead. And Mr. Wiggles just pips John to the pole position time by 0.02 of a second. Incredible.
Again, expect the unexpected. Just when you thought you'd seen everything, something will happen, and it'll re-break your jaw.
And that brings qualifying to a close. So we'll have Mr. Wiggles takes brilliant pole position from John in second. The Scotsman Deflated Wee lines up pretty in third place, with Deflated Wee recovering to fourth. Commence sitting fifth in the AlphaTauri. Very good qualifying session from him. Prev NL is sixth in the Mercedes. Flew is seventh in the Alpine. Greg is eighth in the McLaren. Smaller Smiley is ninth in the Alfa Romeo. And Joseph Hales sadly couldn't get a lap together, and he will start the race in 10th position. You said expect the unexpected, and Joseph Hales, sadly, I think none of us were expecting him to lose it there when it really counted. It's going to be a hell of a comeback drive from him, it has to be said.
Season was IIRL Greg.
It was Greg.
So expect some good stuff from Greg tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here we go now. We are on to the 5-minute break for this Mexican Grand Prix. So just before we go into the race, I'm just going to bring up the championship standings once again for those of you joining who may not be aware of the standings going into this race. So as you can see, the man who sits in third place on the grid sits in first place in the championship. 10-10 leading the field by 69 points. He could retire for the next 2 races and he'll still be leading the World Championship. But with 7 races to go, he'll look to be wrapping this up, hopefully, at least by about round 14 or 15, depending on how consistent he's been. And with 5 wins on the trot, he has been incredibly consistent, it has to be said. He is trailed by Wiggles, who sits in pole, and John, who sits in second place on the grid, by second and third, respectively. Deflated Wee sits in fourth, with IIRL, the reserve driver in the Red Bull, sitting in fifth. Smiley sits in sixth, with that guy in the Williams sitting in seventh. Hales, needing a good result, sits in eighth in the standings, ahead of his teammate Flew. And with the reserve driver Top Gun, only done 2 races and still sitting in 10th place in the standings. For the constructors, we have, I just realised, yeah, there we go. The Williams team sits highest with a 119-point lead over Mercedes, with McLaren sitting in P3 only 3 points behind the Mercedes. Alpine in fourth, with Haas in fifth and Oracle Red Bull Racing in sixth, owing to a lot of IIRL's points, with Deton sadly starting at the back of the grid. Alfa Romeo sitting seventh with Smiley and Pajestic, with Aston Martin eighth, with Asperfrog and S. Longson. But we got a couple of we got one debutant, which was of the new guys. It was it Colo Polo?
Trollo Bolo, I think.
Trollo Polo, which is certainly a tongue twister. I think try saying that a million times when you've had a few to drink. With Scuderia Ferrari, make sure I got that pronunciation correct, in ninth place, with two new debutants this season. I have to say both of them had a very respectable debut, getting into Q2. And with Scuderia AlphaTauri at the bottom, but they're looking very feisty, with Commence sitting in fifth place to start this race in the AlphaTauri. Now that we've done the qualifying stand, we've done the championship standings going into qualifying, I think it's a good time to talk about the featured driver standing. Shouldn't we do that, Sun God?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Something that we
Would you like me to do it?
Yeah, you're go for it, mate. You can do that one if you want.
So, seeing as he's finally racing, it's a good chance to give Richie the feature driver for tonight. Feature driver, in case you're new around here, a way for us to get to know the people and not just the game tag. Richie is 68 years of age. Believe it or not, is the oldest member in our league. From England. Occupation is a cyber security expert. I have no idea what that would be, but sounds fun.
Clever clogs then.
Hobbies and interests include racing and drinking, but not at the same time. He was very keen to say that last bit. Racing on a Formula Fanatec V2.5, DD2 base with V3 pedals. Favorite driver, Lewis Hamilton. Favorite track is Baku, which was the first race of the season, believe it or not. That was a long time ago.
He clearly enjoys pain.
As for his racing strengths, he says clean driving, no time penalties, no incidents. And anywhere in the points will be fine for Richie. And Richie considers Padge a rival in the league.
And that will cover the featured driver for this particular race. So as the countdown ends, and we've got ourselves a race in our hands, with 5 red lights coming on ahead of the drivers. It's lights out and away we go. It looks like a good start from Wiggle so far at the moment. Deflated Wee's made a good one himself, getting ahead of the Williams of 1010. He hasn't had the best one himself. It's going to be a fast tow all the way down to the first corner. John goes to the inside ahead of Wiggles, and looks like he's got the inside going into the first corner. Wiggles are going to fight it around the outside, but the Mercedes holds on to the lead. A Deflated Wee looks like he's fighting John for second place as well. Relatively strong start so far from the top two, as John loses out actually to Deflated Wee. He's had an absolutely mega start in the Haas, as Wiggles strikes out comfortably in the lead as 1010 falls down into fourth place. It looks like a little bit of a fight there between John and 1010 as the Scotsman refuses to give up. And John, who needs to get, that's had a shocking start. He's made contact and sadly he's lost some positions, and already he's got the 3-second time penalty, as if that collision could not get any more unfortunate for him.
There's a little bit of contact in the first couple of corners with some of those mid and back markers. Hatch had a poor start, but just got out of the way. TD had a good start. There's contact between, I think, TD and Dayman in turn 2, but TD has had a really good start. Just taking it sensible, making moves around the outside in the first few corners.
And Joseph Hales has had a brilliant start. He came from 10th all the way up into 5th. You can see a lot of the grid are starting out on the hard compound tyre, obviously going for that longer strategy, whereas 1010 has decided to go for the medium to hard tyres. He goes down the inside of Deflated Wee. Is he going to be able to make the move stick? Yes, he is. And the Scotsman, who started out in third, has now moved up to second. And with those grippier medium tyres. He's got to make the move on Wiggles as soon as he can. But with DRS opening, it's going to be very hard for him to potentially pull away, as John John's obviously fallen down to 9th. And I don't know. Well, how did you call that one between him and 1010?
Oh, I lagged out.
Do you want me to invite you back in?
It would be appreciated, yes.
For now, because I'm always joining someone's party or gaming session. But anywho, potentially a racing incident there between the two, with Songod thankfully back in the party, so thank goodness for that. Not the best exit there, and a little twitch there, has to be said, from 1010, as the gap is really starting to spread out between the top 3. Wiggles in the lead by 0.7 of a second, with DRS now enabled. Deflated Wii is a second behind 1010 in the Haas. He's got to stay with him though, but it's going to be hard to stay within that second unless 1010 makes a mistake. As Prev and Joseph Hales are fighting each other now, the Mercedes versus the Alpine. Hales really needing to make a comeback here, and he's run out of road by the Mercedes. Hard but fair racing, it has to be said. But let's see if he can make another move coming into turn 4. He's going to try it around the outside potentially. That is so brave from Joseph Hales, who started out in 10th and may find himself all the way up into 4th. He tries down the inside yet again, and oh, so close to making contact there between the Mercedes. Very well held from those two, as Commence looks towards the outside of the AlphaTauri. Brilliant racing from both drivers there.
Prev's lost ground, and 1010 spun it.
1010 hasn't spun it. He's still up in second.
Is he? Well,
Yeah.
I lagged out, and Prev went down to 7th, and 1010 spun.
Gotta love connectivity.
Oh, I love this game.
Yeah. Game of the year, surely. And with Deflated Wii outside... Deflated Wii outside of DRS, this is the Scots' opportunity to throw it down the inside, potentially. No, he's going to wait until turn 4, I think. As another time penalty comes, for this time for Damon, as Commence retires from the session. And that brings out, I don't know whether it's a virtual or a full safety car, but Commence is retired, so I don't know whether there was a... Oh, there we see there, the AlphaTauri in the back. Was there contact? You don't just you don't just retire by throwing it into the barriers yourself in a straight line. There must have been contact there. But that has thrown out the full course safety car.
I'm going to take this opportunity to restart my Xbox. I'll be back in a minute.
No worries. I'll keep the seat warm for you, mate.
Okay.
So while Song God goes and does that, you guys have just got me for now. As we see coming up to the end of turn 3, that's where you'll find the safety car. Pad just also retired in the pits, and TD sitting in 10th at the moment in the Red Bull. Excuse me. For Smiley and Joseph Hales, who lost his front wing there. So I don't know, maybe there was contact between him and Commence, but Joseph Hales now sitting at the back of the grid again. So this man who had a brilliant start and has it all to do, has got even more to do now, and now he sits stone dead last. He must be going to a 2-stop then. So plenty of stuff happening already in this Mexican Grand Prix. We've had one retirement, plenty of collisions. John Foot losing a few places. The top 3 relatively strong. It's going to be quite interesting to see how this plays into strategy, because 10-10 could go longer on those mediums, but that means it could be potentially more of a sprint for Wiggles and Deflated should they decide to go longer themselves. But this is a place where you really need to keep those tyres in a good window. So we'll just run you through the top 10. So we have Wiggles in the lead. We have 1010 second, Deflated Wheat in third, Prev NL in fourth place, Flu is in fifth in the Alpine, Richard 020 is sixth in the Ferrari. It's a very strong debut so far for him. John currently sits in seventh place. TD is currently sitting in eighth place with Sano in ninth, and Trollabolo making his debut in 10th place as 1010 comes into the pits as I try to invite Songod.
Xbox wanted me to do an update, so I assume that might be why. Got some problems tonight.
Well, hopefully those issues should be rectified now. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff's obviously happened. Joseph Hales has had to box. He's now down to 15th. 1010 has chosen to go into hards now, so probably gonna run softs at the end. Not quite sure what's happening weather-wise for this race, but everyone seems to be bunching back up right now. So give this probably another lap, and the safety car will certainly come in. So looks like Joseph Hale's not too happy with commence there, but with commence out of the race, it all just depends on what happened with that. If there was contact, sounded like there was contact, but we'll leave that for the stewards to decide this time around. Let's see.
12 positions gained. Trollabolo 7, Zeno and Richie both up 5. Richard up 6 in 5th place right now.
Yeah, very strong debut from the Ferrari. He'll certainly have it all to do. Quite a few people have come in to change their strategies, and Deflated Wheat looks like he's got a brilliant run there on the Mercedes. And he's decided now's the time where he's going to drop it. A little bit of backwards twitching there from Mr. Wiggles as he comes across the start-finish rate. Mercedes are in P1 and 3. But let's see if the Haas is going to do anything about the Mercedes up front. He knows he's got a pretty good toe at the moment. Blue not too far from Prev. Let's see what they're doing behind as well. Blue goes round to the outside. Oh, that was very ballsy. Has to be said from the Alpine. But, oh, a little bit of contact there between the two. And they've kind of ruined their own laps there. And John, funny enough, is actually sitting quite pretty in 5th place. What's TD going to be able to do behind John? Nothing so far. And Richard is currently at the moment in 3rd. It's all coming to...
Oh, my word.
Oh, you've been kicked again?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the problem is tonight.
I'm not so sure what the issue is. I'll invite you again.
We may have some problems.
Sector 2 and 3, and that's Prev. Prev has spun it in his Mercedes after battling with Flu, but sadly, those two was a little bit clumsy, those two getting together. Hopefully, it won't ruin anybody's race. The Smaller Smiley moves up into 9th position, ahead of Jamie, who loses out to 10-10. But, oh, Wiggles covers Deflated Wheat going into the first corner. I think it's going to get very, very spicy between these two. As we're coming up, the DRS hasn't even been opened yet, as 10-10 now moves into 10th place as Richie moves down, and the positions are changing all the time as Trollabolo now loses out to Smaller Smiley. The top 3 now separated by about 4 to 6 tenths apiece. John sitting behind in 4th place, so while he's still got that time penalty, which I have to say was just pretty cruel from the game to give him that. But how's this for Richard? Currently sitting in 3rd place right now, as Deflated Wheat's had a bit of a moment, and that's going to put him right into the clutches of the Ferrari. Coming down into the stadium section. He's not going to try it here, but with DRS coming up for him in the next lap, Deflated Wheat's going to lose out potentially, as Greg has now left the session, so potentially been kicked there.
I can invite him back.
Lovely. Thank you for that, mate. DRS has been enabled, and Trollabolo loses out, and that means Joseph Hales now has moved up into 10th place. Richard is going for it in the Ferrari, it seems. Yellow's in Sector 3 as Jamie retires from the session. The Ferrari goes down to the inside. And one of the faster drivers in the league. Another penalty for John in terms of time penalties there. But Richard looking very, very feisty in his Ferrari. And what is his first race in this tier? He's giving us a hell of a show at the moment.
Love to see it.
John not too far behind, as is TT, who started from the back of the grid, with Sano in 6th place as well in the Ferrari. I think both Ferraris having really strong debuts in the no assist tier. You gotta be kidding me. You've been kicked again.
I'm gonna have to give up.
Ah, well. Oh, dear. There's not much not much I can do without you in the session. So I suppose if there's a key stat, we've obviously got the stat man to obviously help me out with that. Depends how you want to play it, mate.
I'll watch the stream and I'll just pick up on stuff that I can.
Okay.
You know.
John sitting behind the Ferrari now. He now finds himself under pressure from the McLaren, who would have set a brilliant time. So we're going to try around the outside. Maybe those mediums starting to give out, and the McLaren just edges through. I have to say, brilliant show there from John, who, might remind you, had a collision with 10-10 at the first lap, and now finds himself sitting back in 3rd place on the same strategy before. No damage, no tyres, but he has got 6 seconds already worth of track penalties. Now 10-10 gets his first 3-second penalty. Just as Sun God predicted, it's so easy to invalidate to invalidate and also to accrue time penalties like they're going out of style. And there you go, 10-10 plays a very ambitious move there on Flu. You don't often see overtaking over there, but once you saw it, it was absolutely brilliant. It has to be said. Richie now gets a time penalty. They are all starting to creep in here as Mr. Wiggles now pulls. Is it 2.5 seconds out of John? Yeah, that's because deflated wheel is spun. So Wiggles is sitting very pretty, just as he was in Singapore. 2.4 seconds covers him and John. Make that 8 seconds with all the John's penalties. Richard crucially doesn't have DRS, but deflated does, I believe. Yes, he does. So the Ferrari may be vulnerable coming into turn 4.
Flu is really not liking these hard tyres. Got overtaken by Zeno a couple of laps ago, but just struggled with traction out of turn 5. And yeah, more problems being overtaken by Joseph and 10-10. Flu is hating these hard tyres right now.
I have to say, maybe it was that sort of collision with Prev that just completely ruined his rhythm.
Very well. Wiggles having throttle issues, says Padge. So race leader could be in danger. Shame we can't put telemetry up to have a look at what's going on there, but obviously Wiggles maybe in the pit stop might be able to change some settings or just move his rig around maybe, see if that helps.
1.4 seconds the gap now between him and the McLaren. So the throttle issues are definitely getting worse.
John will be pushing to get Richard out of his DRS, so I imagine it may not be catastrophic for Wiggles.
Well, he's lost about 6/10 in that straight.
Obviously, if he is having throttle issues, he may not actually reach full throttle down the straights. That will be critical on this track.
And don't know the exact difference, but assume the difference between that will be quite a lot. And that's all playing back into John's hands, who still is fighting a bit of an uphill battle to win this Grand Prix because of that 6-second penalty. How you doing, Johnny? Great to see you as always. And looks like he's sorted out now because he's just pulled a few tenths in that sector. So it looks like he's coming back to Mr. Wiggles, but also as well, he's lost a little bit of time on the straight. So maybe that throttle issue is still persisting.
Really good races so far from TD and Zano. 6th and 7th right now. Who would have predicted that? based on their quality performances.
Well, to be honest, TD didn't have a quali, so...
True.
Oh, we got yellows in sector... yellows in sector 3. I think that's Deton who might have had a bit of an incident. And yes... Oh, and there's looks like a little bit of contact there between Deton, Damon, Prev. Not quite sure what happened there, but it certainly didn't go pretty. I'll tell you that for free. It's certainly not for the Red Bull.
Trollabolo was battling with Dayman in that final sector, so maybe Deton was just behind and maybe just outbroke himself and maybe there was contact, who knows.
Well, given some of the incidents that we've seen, I think the stewards might be having a bit of a field day when the report comes in.
It was you, so...
No, it's Kai this week, mate. I did it last week. So hard shot like a deflated Wii spins it! Dear oh dear, the Haas who's hasn't had the tidy to race it, it just gets even more untidy. And has he damaged his rear wing there?
That was a hefty whack in the wall.
I wouldn't be surprised if his rear wing is damaged.
Might have... Actually, no, may not have side pod damage. I think we have that setting turn off, but rear wing damage, possibly, who knows.
Well,
Keep an eye on his sector times behind Flu.
Looks tidy enough for now. Aseno is now fighting with TD, trying to attempt to move. He gets so close to Ferrari against the Red Bull. He's having a very good debut here, harassing TD in the Red Bull. Let's see, he should be able to overtake now coming into the next sector with DRS, but I think he's playing this quite sensibly, backing out as Hales goes for a move on 10-10 and makes it work, but he goes wide. I think he'll have to give the place up. He'll have to allow the Williams back through, and he does so quite sensibly. Very fair racing there, and has to be said.
Yeah, a little bit of contact as well in turn 4 for 10-10 and Joseph Hales. 10-10 wiggles there, just saying thank you for letting me past.
Yep. That's the commentator's quote. He's had a good day.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the laugh on stream, but I did chuckle at that one.
You all know what I meant. I mean, all over the back of TD, I think certainly one not harassing him, but certainly making life difficult for him in the process. And speaking of which, he goes down the inside, making that move stick. Very good debut for both Ferraris so far, it has to be said.
To be fair, you're not a streamer in IRL until you've got a commentator's quote. So,
That's no better. So if I've got a quote, then I've made it. I can retire happy.
Well, you're hanging up your boots at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, I'm retiring from racing, but I'll do like the occasional sort of stream. If I go into more sort of commentary, I do enjoy that, and I do love racing and being part of this league. But I think commentating is something I've really started to enjoy a lot more of, because I can just go into it. Plus, I have a bit more time with friends and family across the week. But here, enough kind of sentimental stuff. You can all leave your tissues at home. You got TD under pressure from the Flying Scotsman 10-10, who he pitted under the first safety car to change strats. So assume he'll be going to the softs, and TD has come in now for the first of the main stops here.
Yeah, I was going to say it was time for TD to pit. He was down a second on Zeno, just on that hard compound tyre, which has extended out slightly in this opening stint. So TD was really struggling on those mediums. Deflated right behind Flu. He was the second back into the middle sector, so he's really gained a lot. Or maybe Flu is just really struggling on those hard tyres this evening.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't. He hasn't looked too racy ever since he had that collision with Prev. But I know it's a shame, because he has been one of the more consistent runners within this league so far. And I'm honest, this is what I was saying about the aerial shots on the spectator view. I have to be honest, this looks really, really nice to commentate on.
One thing I would have loved to see as well is telemetry on the screen. So, for instance, you know, when I think it was either this game or last game, telemetry came in public, and I thought that meant you could see like what percentage the tires are on, but we've not been promised that, I'm afraid. It's a bit of a shame.
Well, like the Amazon graphics that they put in, I think it was like F1 20, in like 2020 in real life F1, they did like the Amazon graphics,
Yeah,
which to be
I would
honest,
love to see that.
Absolutely. We're going on board with 1010, who's up against Sano in the Ferrari, and looks like it's a fairly done move. There he goes down the inside. The championship leader goes up into 5th, but the Ferrari's not giving up. Unfortunately, he runs in wide there, so it looks like the Ferrari will have to concede. Now Joseph Hale sitting right behind the Williams. Is the Alpine going to attempt to move? No, he backs out of it there. I think quite very sensible driving from some of these drivers so far. But you sense potentially a move is coming a little bit later, and 10 seconds off the lead on what is going to be an alternate strategy doesn't look too bad at the moment for 1010. However, that last stint, if he is going to softs, well, I imagine he is, he's going to have to go like the absolute clappers. And Deflated Wee has spun again. He's done it again in the Haas. So now he drops down into 10th. He's not liking these hard tyres, but as soon as they go off, you absolutely lose so much grip on those hard compound tyres. Deflated Wee not having a good session, but I think the 4th in the championship is staying somewhat intact.
Well, Deflated had a couple of spins in quali, so I imagine this is a setup issue. I imagine on Thursday there'll be some tweaking going on.
See, Damon's had a moment just spinning off there. Yellows in 2 and 3. That will be for Damon. He's sadly been kicked. No, not kicked rather. He's lagged out, rather. We're going up to the top. It's lap 18 so far for Mr. Wiggles, and he's got a 2.3 second gap over his rival for second in the championship, John. With 10
Yeah, those throttle problems for Mr. Wiggles, potentially not quite as severe as we first thought.
Or at least they've been ironed out somewhat. It was almost like watching... Do you remember that race in Austria when Charles Leclerc had his sticky throttle problem, which meant he probably would have retired had the race not ended the way it did? Yellows is sector 2. I think that's Deflated Wee struggling yet again. He is not liking those tyres as Smallest Mine takes 3rd as Richard comes into the pits on 18 lap old mediums. Those hards will certainly go through to the end.
It's going to be an interesting battle between Smiley and Richard. Obviously, Richard now is pitted earlier, which is kind of, in effect, an undercut on Smaller. But Richard does have the time penalty, and Smaller Smiley obviously will need to box off those mediums and put on another set of mediums.
10-10's off.
Wow, championship leader. Huge mistake. Looks like a legal overtake from Flew. That's unfortunate.
He's lost about nearly 7 seconds because of that mistake. And looks like now the hard tyres are really... they're just starting to die. Did you see the little grip that's being afforded to all of these drivers at the moment? These hard tyres, as soon as they go off, they are really, really starting to die. And that makes me worried for the leader so far. And just for reference, Sungun, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but the amount of penalties on board, and Deflated Wee spins yet again in the Haas. Oh, what's happened to Wiggles? Oh, he's pitted. My bad. And looks like he's coming to a decent gap. Sorry,
48 seconds of time penalties so far, and we're only halfway through. So we could match the 90 seconds last season.
You gotta love it, ain't you? You gotta love it. So there we see Mr. Wiggles triggering the undercut, potentially. He'll have... Well, he's got... he doesn't have any penalties, so he'll have that advantage over John no matter what. But he's got to get those hards... he's got to get those tyres warmed up as quickly as he can, because... John... he'll have warm tyres, albeit a little bit worn out. But he's yet to stop himself. I think at that point, yeah, he's gaining on the leaders at the moment. So it looks like the overcut will certainly work in Mr. Wiggles' favour. Let's see what the McLaren does. And just quite rightly so, he comes into the pits. What does Small the Smiley do? He stays out.
Yeah, there's a few laps left in those mediums from Smaller. And when he boxes for another set of mediums, genuinely could be in for a P2 here.
Oh, that's right, because he changed under safety car. Well remembered. There goes the Mercedes, who's got DRS from 1010, the championship leader, who quite sensibly lets him go. Thinks there's no point in fighting that one. But hasn't been the tidiest race so far from the championship leader. He's probably looking at about 6th place. He probably needs a safety car to turn his fortunes around. But yellows in Sector 2, that's Damon having yet another moment in his car. Flu and Deton fighting between themselves. Now we got Tenta behind it, and Deflated Wee comes into the pits and retires his car. It's been a rather unfortunate day for the Haas driver. Oh, it's TD. Moves up into 10th. He'll have hard, so he's got no issue going to the end. But those tyres will be dead. And Damon gets a 5-second penalty and retires from the race himself. So we've got 14 runners left out of the 19 that have started. So it looks like these battles are between Trollabolo and Flu and TD being the closest on track so far. Wiggles has done the fastest lap of the race so far with a 17.7. About 2 seconds off the quali time. As Flu goes down the inside at the stadium section, overtaking the debutant in the Aston. Oh, a little bit of contact there. Yellows in Sector 1 as... I think that's what's left of the AlphaTauri coming in to retire. Trollabolo comes into the pits to put on his set of mediums. But he gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Mr. Wiggles only 11 seconds off the lead, so has really been gaining on the top two. No surprises there, of course, but he does need to just make sure that he has nothing... he doesn't leave the gap to John too close. So Mr. Wiggles is on top form so far.
Yeah, just for reference, the gap between Wiggles and John is currently sitting at 5.4 seconds. And with no trap penalties as well, that's a considerable advantage he's got against the man who he's fighting for second against in the World Championship, as Joseph Hales gets his first time penalty of the race. As Smaller Smiley and Joseph Hales both come into the pits to throw on, just as I suspected, another set of mediums. Both drivers held by a glitch in their pit box, but they should be able to get back underway. 1010 now sits in second place, but he'll have to come in. I don't see him going to the end on those hards.
I imagine he'll be onto the softs at around about lap 31.
Yeah, because the softs in this game in a race, they last about as long as Charles Leclerc's title hopes.
Oh, savage.
No, that's nothing against Charles Leclerc, but it's more just like Ferrari bashing, which is pretty accustomed to in Formula One at the moment.
Fair dues.
But at least Ferrari are having a better race than they have in esports, with two debutants who are doing a fantastic job, all things considered. With Richard just got onto hards, but with Greg having to do another pit stop, he could sit pretty and take home potentially 5th place, which I have to say, take my hats off to you.
He'll be 4th once 1010 pits as well.
That is true. That is true. Steely says, Spark, you're wrong. Softs last long. Oh! Ouch! As Greg comes into the pits, imagine another set of mediums on his car. Yep, another set of mediums.
Prev still not made a pit stop. 23 laps in. So if he's in the next couple of laps, it will be mediums, but he might just be waiting for another safety car here.
Well, a lot of people have been making mistakes. There's been road crashes, so I can see why he's taking the chance. As Richie now gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Dare I put on the amount of penalties everybody's got?
Later on.
Yeah, maybe we get to about lap 30. Oh my goodness. Now another one. And another one.
I'll count them up at the end. So you can see, Smaller Smiley after the pit stop, 1.1 behind 1010. 1010, 8 seconds almost behind John. So Smaller is roughly about 9 seconds away from John, who has a 6-second penalty. Yeah, John, 1010, Smaller.
You mean Smiley?
Well, the joke was that you say their name twice. Hello, Girthy. How you doing, mate? Deflated called it quits. Had about 4 spins tonight.
For real. My brilliant pronunciation. I think if you hang around, you know what it's like. If you hang around with me long enough, I just make you mispronounce things. Makes you wonder how on earth I got an English degree.
No, my joke was intentional. It was just not very funny. That's all.
Fair play, mate. Fair play.
But Mr. Wiggles, the agenda for the last 10 or 11 laps is basically no more time penalties, because if a safety car comes out, the field is going to be bunched. Everyone with a large amount of time penalties is going to drop down that screen.
I think for Wiggles, he's safe already to a certain extent. Obviously, he's obviously the chance that he could get one, but with John and 1010 having, I think, at least 6 themselves, yeah, 6 seconds worth of penalties. Trollabola's got 22 seconds worth of penalties. As 1010...
Someone got 18 seconds last season, so I think we've
found a new record. Small Smiley goes into third. He's played it very sensibly this race, and I think he can sit pretty unless he can find 3 seconds to get into second against John, and that'll seal second place for him. Deflated Wee says, didn't I get 21 seconds last season? Well, I will leave that to the stat man to find out.
Which race, I'll have a look for you.
I think he's talking about Mexico.
NA last season, you got 18 seconds, not 21.
Well, if you wanted 21 seconds worth of penalties, you should have kept going.
Just wait on Thursday.
Oh, I think... Is that TD that's had a moment? Yeah, TD's had a moment in the Red Bull. Drops down to 10th behind Greg. Now he's got Prev behind him on new mediums. Looks like TD could find himself out of the points.
Well, I imagine TD, if I know him as well as I think I do, he'll be boxing with a few laps left for a set of softs.
Go for the fastest lap.
Yeah, those hard tyres are not nice to be on right now.
No.
How 1010's done 21 laps on those hard compound is very impressive.
Mind you, he put those on at about lap 5 or 6, and at that point, I think they were fresh. He had a little less fuel, so it's sort of stretching the norms a little bit. But at the same time, he's considering Smaller Smiley is on fresher mediums. How is he only 4 tenths ahead of 1010? That's insane.
Well, 1010 is a remarkably good driver. He's not leading the championship by 69 points for no reason.
That is true.
Very good is 1010.
There's one thing he has been that's consistent with 5 wins on the trot, which I believe is a new IRL record.
Oh, that's a record I do not know. I will spend the rest of this week figuring it out. I will get back to you with that NA stat.
This is quite interesting. 1010. He's within DRS, but he didn't activate it on the first straight. Clearly doesn't want to overtake Smaller Smiley. He just wants to go with him. So it's quite strategic here. So we're on about lap 28. We'll just run you through the top 10. So we have Mr. Wiggles leading very comfortably in the lead in first place. John sitting in second with 6 seconds worth of time penalties. Ahead of Smaller Smiley, 12 seconds behind in third. 1010 is currently 7 tenths behind in fourth place, with Joseph Hales not too far behind in fifth. Richard 020 for the Ferrari is ahead of his Ferrari teammate, both debuting in 6th and 7th place. Flew currently sits 8th, with Greg sitting in 9th, and Prev is in the last points playing position in 10th place. Feels like things are starting to die down somewhat in this particular Grand Prix. However, if there's one person things aren't going to die down for, is Joseph Hales. He could snatch potentially third place here, which will be a decent recovery, all things considered. He'll obviously be left wanting depending on the collision. Oh, and as I say that, he spins and hits the back end of his car. He could lose out to one of the Ferraris here.
Well, 2 Ferraris are battling.
Civil war going on in the Maranello, but a little bit of contact there, it looks like, between Sano and Joe Hales. He gets out of the track. Oh! Well, they retained the position off the track there, so I don't know whether I have to get that up. The Smaller Smiley gets a time penalty now.
No such thing, Novatek.
Yep. Whoever says that is telling you porkies, mate. I got a feeling 10-10 might be going to the end.
I mean, it'll be 29-30 laps on the hard compound.
It's brave, but it's not undoable.
Where you see drivers tonight struggling on 10-15 lap hold hard tyres, spinning all over the place, and where he's going for the move down into the first corner, so he must be confident.
And gets another time penalty, sadly. Sano now goes ahead of Joseph Hales, who switches, but look at that switchback that Joseph Hales has just got there. Lovely bit of driving, overtakes him before the Ferrari could open DRS.
Yeah, beautiful move.
Very well defended, it has to be said. So it looks like he hasn't got any rear wing damage. But he's got both Ferraris to fend off. It is red versus blue in Formula 1 mode. Hoping there were some Halo fans in the chat. And we're sitting on lap 31, and you know what? I'm going to pull up the penalties here. Go ahead, Sun God, do the number crunching. How many seconds worth of penalties have we got?
Give me a second. We have 78 seconds. And that's just from drivers that are still racing. We may have more from those bottom 5 as well.
Wow, Sano goes round to the outside of Joseph Hales.
Steely, that is a comment of the day. That is fantastic.
And that from the Ferrari was probably one of the moves of the race. You see him pull
very
that
nice.
off. against Joseph Hales. He keeps the DRS and he should have this covered. Very strong debut there from Sano.
Well, if there's one thing that Joseph Hales is extremely good at in this league, it is being very good at overtaking and defending. So the fact that a newcomer to the league is coming in and challenging him for that title, perhaps, is actually very impressive.
Joseph Hales goes a little bit wide there as... Oh, and it looks like he's lost the back end. He's lost out to the other Ferrari now. Strong drives, has to be said, from both of the Ferraris, where Joseph Hales is getting a little bit too much out of shape. As that spin may completely offset his rhythm.
Just you wait for Sunday, Novatek.
Oh dear. And look at that. 10-10 with 12 seconds worth of penalties is going to be dropping to the Shadow Realm, probably.
Unfortunately for Prev, I mean, it's great that he's kept it clean, but actually he's not going to gain any positions from the top 8, which must be very frustrating.
It's just like, what have I got to do?
9 seconds off Flu. Biggest one is 10-10 on 12 seconds, but perhaps a good, I reckon, 20 seconds away from 10-10.
Oh, it looks like Richard might have disconnected because Joseph Hales looks like he's just ghosting right through them. However, the Alpine goes ahead, though, into 6th. I think 10-10, he's staying out. He's going to the end. But he'll lose the podium for sure.
A pit stop now would set him back to around 9th or 10th. So, I mean, make your own mind up at home. I think it's definitely worth staying out at this point.
Yeah.
But Smaller will get a very well-deserved podium as things stand.
Oh, he's played this very well. But he'll want to win it on track, though, and it looks like he has won it on track. Down to the inside, and the Alfa Romeo moves up into 3rd as an Alfa Romeo driver. I love to see it. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm not biased at all.
Stay loyal to the car you give him, you know?
Absolutely. Unless we take the Sky Sports attitude and get rid of commentators for bias. Oh, and she said Prev gets his time penalty.
Oh, Prev, man, come on.
Oh.
3 laps to go.
So Wiggles is the only one who's been keeping it clean. Can you see? I wonder if he's got. I wonder if we can see how many warnings he's on.
Yeah, you can go into Race Director and check.
Yeah. I'll just quickly do that now.
I would have done it before you, but the game doesn't like me today.
Okay, so he's had 1.
Oh, there's an easy way to do this. Go back.
He's on 2 warnings.
Yeah. Next time, just go on to drivers and then select the driver and view lap times.
Okay.
That'd be an easier way to do it.
Fair enough. I'll do that next time.
But it's been a no-mistake race from Wiggles. Perfect, you could say.
Absolutely. He's more or less controlled this race ever since he took pole. But then again, there's only 3 laps to go. Anything can happen, and it usually does. Deton puts on softs in the Red Bull. Sano could take home 4th place. Just noticed.
Yeah, that is a fantastic stat, Steely. "26 of you here. I think this is the highest viewing figures for a Tuesday night. Thank you all for dropping by. If you're new around here, we stream 3 times a week. Join us on Thursday and Sunday for 81 and 82.
It's an absolute pleasure as always. I mean, thank you for the massive viewership that we're getting in this particular stream. And as crucially, John has dropped back a little bit from Mr. Wiggles. Look how he's lost a few seconds. It's lap 35 now, and it looks like, well, 10-10 I think is He's losing time, so without a doubt, I think he's going to lose that 4th place. I'm not quite sure where the calculations are in terms of where he'll drop down to in terms of his penalties, but it's so hard to predict with all the other penalties out there. But crucially, are we going to get a full house of people? Everybody on the grid has a penalty. Do you reckon we'll get a full house, Sun God?
No, I think Wiggles is in a flow now. He's in the rhythm. He's got the groove. He's got no pressure. He knows John has 6 seconds of time penalties, so pretty much he's got a 10-second lead right now. No mistakes. Just bring the car home, and Bob's your uncle.
We'll go on board then with the race leader. It's about to start his final lap of the Mexican Grand Prix. It's been a race that he has had an iron grip over in his Mercedes, and so weird to see a Mercedes being dominant in F1 2022. Normally you see it with a Red Bull, but this man, he hasn't even got a track penalty. That's how consistent he has been with yellows in Sector 3. So 1010 retires. What?
What? In the pits?
He's retired in the pits. The championship leader's not going to score any points for the 2nd race in a row. And that's going to...
Sorry?
For the 2nd race in a row, the championship leader is not going to score. Maybe he just had damage there. I'm not quite sure what the issue is there. That puts Ferrari of Seno into 4th. We'll wait until all of the penalties are applied before we judge the final positions. But one thing is for certain. This man, Mr. Wiggles, comes across the line with no penalties to his name. He wins the Mexican Grand Prix with an absolutely flawless drive. No penalties, a comfortable lead up in front. This man is the man of the hour.
And that's a really good point from Sketchy's crib. 1010 could have got a puncture.
Ouch.
He could have got a puncture on the last lap of the race.
That is...
Which has cost him 4th place.
That is pain.
We'll try and get confirmation to you, chat.
But this man, Seno, stand up and take a bow. Ito's 6th. Richard actually finishes 4th, with Joseph Hales 5th. Flew comes over the line in 7th, with Prev in 8th. Greg comes over the line in 9th. And the last person is Trollabolo. But I think, well, with TD, he didn't finish on the lead lap. So whatever happens with his, let's see, 28 seconds worth of penalties, TD is not going to gain anything from this. He's going to keep 10th place. Which I have to say, funny old end to this funny old Grand Prix. But there we have it. Very interesting race coming in Mexico. Flawless drive from Mr. Wiggles, it has to be said.
Wiggles, what happened with 1010? Track limits coming into the pit. I still don't understand what happened with 1010.
If they got one more penalty, then Trollo would have been disqualified. I didn't realise that was a stat.
Well, it's to do with how many warnings you get. You could get 2 10-second time penalties straight away, and you could still race for loads. Yeah, it's done on warnings, I think, Dayton, not specific time penalties.
Or unless you park your car in qualifying, in which Jamie sadly found out. It's never something we want to see, but anywho, plenty of stuff happening. So there we have a dominant display from Mr. Wiggles, who not only takes the win, leads pretty much every lap, but he also gets the fastest lap. And he finishes ahead of John in 2nd place in the McLaren, with Smaller Smiley takes a well-deserved podium in 3rd in the Aston Martin. Richard 020, brilliant debut to score 4th. Joseph Hales recovers to 5th, with Seno, another brilliant debut to finish in 6th position. Blue goes into 7th in the Alpine, with Prev rounding off in 8th place in the Mercedes. Greg coming in 9th in the McLaren, and Trollabolo on his debut finishing in 10th place and keeping his 10th place ahead of TD, who didn't finish on the lead lap. Deton 12th, Richie M 13th, and 1010 had to retire, which we're thinking may have had a puncture, with Damon, Deflated Wee, Jamie, Commence, and Padge all retiring from this race as well. So, after all that, Song God, who's your candidate for driver of the day?
Well, I just want to say, last season we had 90 seconds of time penalties. Today we have 116 seconds. So,
yeah, that's another record for us, peeps.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. You all contributed to that one.
Think of it as a team effort, guys. It's a team effort.
So, driver of the day, it's hard to look past Mr. Wiggles. Strong races from John after that early setback, and with the early time penalties, kept it clean, good pace, gets a solid P2. And Smaller Smiley as well. Very well deserved podium. So those top three, top marks. And of course, the two new Ferraris, Richard and Zano, have been excellent today.
Absolutely. They both deserve a shout out, both the debutants in the Ferrari. Very strong race from the pair of them. But it was apart from a throttle issue for Mr. Wiggles, it was just perfection the way he drove. So I think I'm going to have to give driver of the day to him, but there'll be plenty of shout outs when we come to do the driver of the day message in the Discord chat. So there we have it, guys. That rounds off round 12 for the Mexican Grand Prix, with a very chaotic race with a lot of track penalties and plenty to talk about. And I hope you guys, for those of you who don't, we have a 25 of you viewing at one time, which is absolutely brilliant for no assists, given we usually have about 16, 17. So to have you guys tuning in with the stream, we really appreciate your support. So now we go into round 13, which I believe is at Bahrain, which will be our third and final sprint race of this calendar before we head into the Monaco Grand Prix. Sun God, I know you had issues with connectivity, but been an absolute pleasure having you in the comm box with me this race. You've been an absolute pleasure as always.
Thank you, and thanks for leading the stream. I will say one thing before we go. In 2 weeks' time, you do not want to miss it. It's round 14. We're at Monaco. We've got the first ever Monaco night race in IIRL.
Yes.
And all 3 streams will be sponsored. So, if you don't see any more streams for the next 2 weeks, I don't mind too much. But join in 2 weeks today, Monaco, 7:30 p.m. GMT. It's the £20 Amazon gift card up for grabs, and it's going to be a night Monaco race. You don't want to miss it.
You heard the man. You know what to do. You know when to tune in. We will love to see you then. But as for now, it's been a hell of a race for Mr. Wiggles. And this is Spark signing off at IRL for this stream. And we will see you guys next week for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Bye-bye.